positive projection report on COVID-19 promised by the Premier.
I think it's important to emphasize, though, is that this disease can dramatically turn and you can have rapid growth.
Projections show Ontario is seeing a more gentle curve than it was preparing for, but health officials say we won't see a decrease in daily cases anytime soon. Plus,
a company that owns some of the biggest malls in Canada has collected images of millions of shoppers without them even knowing it, and experts say the data gathered is very sensitive and personal.
It's data that is literally part of us.
I'm Angelina King outside of the Eaton Centre. I'll have more on that and what the company is saying about the concerns. That's coming up.
And on World Ballet Day, I speak with a student and staff member at Canada's National Ballet School about challenges during the pandemic and efforts to increase diversity in the art of dance. Good evening, I'm Talia Ricci. The province's COVID-19 numbers are expected to continue growing in the weeks ahead, but likely not at the same rate as we've been seeing recently. That was the message today from the province's top health officials as they shared the latest modeling data on the virus. Lorenda Redicop reports.
The trajectory appears to be moving away from the worst case, but cases are continuing to climb.
Not sharply, but still, the latest modeling shows some concerning increases, especially in some of the hot zones.
We are seeing continued growth in cases, as Dr. Brown had said. We are not going on a decline right now, but we are not going as steep of a curve.
Whether it's cases per 100,000 people, the percent of people testing positive, particularly in Toronto and Peel, or the cases where they can't track where someone caught the virus. Hospitalizations aren't increasing as quickly as expected, so officials say it's unlikely surgeries will have to be limited to make room for COVID patients.
I think it's important to emphasize, though, is that this disease, particularly because it can spread so quickly with these super spreader events, can dramatically turn and you can have rapid growth quite quickly.
So we are slowing the curve and bend it. That means it's our plan. We don't have to push back on our hospitals. We don't have to put curfews and lockdowns. That's our plan.
Earlier in the day, the Premier suggested a somewhat rosier picture.
The good news is we're seeing a little bit of a decline, but make no mistake about it. Please do not let our guard down. We can't. It happened before, and it just spiked up.
The health advisors say an example of the complexities if people do let their guard down. 2 outbreaks are weddings, and 1 includes people from 8 different health regions. And the data shows the average age of people being infected is getting older, now 40 years old. One concerning number, cases rising in long-term care and retirement homes among both residents and staff. The health officials say it's still too early to say whether the modified stage 2 will end after 28 days in the hardest hit regions. For Toronto, Peel and Ottawa, that ends in just over a week. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
The owner of malls like the Eaton Centre and Sherway Gardens is facing questions tonight after a report by Canada's Privacy Commissioner found it used facial recognition technology without customers' knowledge or consent. It was being used at 12 malls across Canada, including 5 in Ontario back in 2018. Now the report sheds light on just how many people were affected. Angelina King has more.
They'd be hard to see, but little cameras were inside these kiosks. And in just 2 months, 5 million shoppers had their image taken without knowing.
Still annoying because it's like you don't give permission to these people to do any of this, but they just do it. It is kind of questionable that they wouldn't know about it.
Cadillac Fairview says it used the technology to find out the demographic of shoppers, not to identify them. It says the images were briefly analyzed, then deleted and converted into sequences of numbers. The Privacy Commission found that information was being stored by a third party. Experts say the biometric data that was collected, people's facial patterns or eyes, for example, is sensitive and personal.
It's data that is literally part of us and that we can't change. So if that kind of information suffers a breach, if it's stolen, It's sort of profoundly identifying information that can never be changed or replaced, and that puts us at risk.
The company says shoppers were made aware of the activity through signs on doors that referred to its privacy policy. Not sufficient, the commission says.
Consent has to be meaningful, not some fine line, 20-page legal document. It's got to be in plain language.
This artificial intelligence expert says in the end, the company's way of trying to collect demographic data is likely flawed anyway, because it's based on an algorithm that isn't always accurate.
The data itself is so biased, right? This type of algorithms should not be applied for gender identification or demographic identification because it doesn't work.
Cadillac Fairview stopped using the technology after concerns were raised in a CBC investigation in 2018. The commission says it can't fine a company in a case like this, but would have considered it.
It is an incredible shortcoming of Canadian law.
The Privacy Commission still has one big concern. It says Cadillac Fairview hasn't committed to ensuring it gets meaningful consent if it chooses to use this technology in the future. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
One person is dead after a fatal crash on the 401 tonight. It happened on the westbound express lanes near Markham Road just before 7. The OPP say 2 cars were involved and the person who died is a male. The express lanes in that area will remain closed for the rest of the night. One of 3 men involved in a brazen playground shooting in 2018 was sentenced today. 25-year-old Taquan Robertson pleaded guilty to attempted murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault, as 2 little girls were caught in the crossfire. Ali Chiasson has the details.
Terror struck on a sunny day in June 2018 when 10 rounds were shot into a playground full of kids near Alton Towers in Scarborough. A man, the intended target, ran away, but 2 little girls had been caught in the crossfire. Sisters, just 5 and 9 years old at the time. One had been shot in the leg, the other in her abdomen. They survived. And while 2 of the 3 men allegedly involved were arrested within a couple of months, 25-year-old Taquan Robertson was hiding. A $75,000 reward was posted for information. Robertson was only arrested this July, more than 2 years after the shooting. He was charged with attempted murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault, for which he was sentenced today. The Crown wanted 15 years. The defense argued 10. Justice John McMahon landed somewhere in the middle, sentencing Robertson to 13 years in prison.
My client had been arrested.
Defense attorney John Struthers says his client likely avoided the maximum sentence because of his guilty plea, which avoids putting the victim's family through a lengthy and re-traumatizing trial.
Entering a plea is a true demonstration of remorse. You're not taking advantage of the situation. When somebody demonstrates remorse genuinely in the face of no agreement with the Crown, no agreement of any kind, to the charges he's facing without them being reduced in any way, and says, I'm throwing myself on the mercy of the court, he gets credit for doing that. It's just as simple as that.
Taquan Robertson had a prior gun charge on his record with a 10-year weapons ban on him. That was violated the day he brought a loaded gun to a playground. The justice quoted from one of the little girl's victim impact statements that reads, "When I got shot, I felt sad because no child should have to pay the price for gun violence." The 2 co-accused in this shooting have their day in court next month. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The father and sister of a missing Bradford team are begging for him to come home.
Sam, my brother, we are worried about you. We love you and we miss you. Please come home.
Come to home.
Please,
home,
Sam. All
please.
people are worried about you, about
Please,
your
come to home.
well-being and your safety. Please come home.
15-year-old Ziem Zarezgi was last seen in his neighborhood on Saturday. Police have brought in more help for the search. Today, officers on ATVs were combing fields and wooded areas. Police are asking people who live in the Professor Day Drive and Northgate Drive area to check their properties for any sign of the teen. Police say they've broken up a Toronto-based gang that was operating right across the province.
Project Sumter has significantly disrupted the criminal operations and hierarchy of the Eglinton West Crips gang.
Toronto police began Operation Sunder in September of 2019. They worked with police services across Ontario to make the arrests. They say the gang was a coordinated criminal organization responsible for trafficking guns and humans. Along with 31 firearms, police also seized drugs and more than $300,000 in cash. Investigators say more than 100 people now face hundreds of charges. Improving police oversight in Ontario is going to require legislative changes at Queen's Park. This week, we've brought you stories about police discipline and accountability, all from our analysis of a decade's worth of data. Our final story in the series, Policing the Police, looks at what experts say should be done to improve police accountability. Farah Morali has more.
So for 2 days, we've been talking about police oversight, how rarely officers are fired after they've been convicted of a crime, and how few public complaints actually lead to disciplinary action. So how can we improve police oversight and accountability here in Ontario? Here's what the experts had to say. 1, give the OIPRD more resources and power. All public complaints about Toronto police officers go to the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, but the OIPRD doesn't have the resources to investigate all of them. So what happens? Many of those complaints go back to the Professional Standards Unit at the service where the complaint originated. Experts we spoke to say it's not a fair process to ask officers to investigate their own.
And make sure that an independent body will be tasked with the obligation to review all the complaints. And that, I think, will also go a long way in ensuring these complaints are being investigated properly.
Have independent adjudicators preside over disciplinary cases. When it comes to internal disciplinary hearings, how it works is this. The chief of police assigns a senior officer to oversee the case. So, again, police investigating police. Experts told us an independent adjudicator would give the public confidence that the system is impartial and fair.
Why there cannot be an independent investigative arm that is made up of people who are not going to be put in that position, who will do the investigation. There could be civilians.
3, expand the mandate of the SIU. So the police watchdog, the SIU, is an independent body that only investigates specific types of incidents involving police. Experts we spoke to said to boost transparency, give the SIU the authority to investigate more.
They could expand their mandate because their mandate is limited to looking at death, serious injuries, or sexual assault allegations. In some of the oversight agencies across Canada, they can investigate domestic violence of officers. They can investigate other types of misconduct.
We know the provincial government has introduced legislation that it says would address at least one of these recommendations, specifically this one about independent adjudicators at disciplinary hearings. We don't know is when that legislation actually comes into effect. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
The ballet world definitely does need to grow, but I'm seeing myself more in the ballet community now than I had previously.
After the break on this International Ballet Day, we'll look at the push to make the art form more inclusive and the challenges dancers have faced amid the pandemic. Plus,
some frost advisories and a wind chill to talk about. I'm meteorologist Colette Kennedy. Your Friday forecast and a bit more. That's all coming up after the break.
Today is World Ballet Day, a global celebration of dance. A lot of the activities to recognize the day were online this year. I spoke with a student and a faculty member at Canada's National Ballet School about the challenges they faced during the pandemic and how ballet in Canada is working to become more inclusive. What have been some of the biggest challenges being on the ballet faculty and dealing with COVID?
I think it was really hard, and it is really hard on many people, but artists and dancers in particular. I think we all were able to appreciate some of the great ideas and creativity of some major dance ballet companies doing these videos and choreographies online, and we've been really supportive of each other. I think the community has also been supportive. I know that the school has worked very hard in collaboration with other dance schools in Canada to work things out together. So it's been a very challenging but also fruitful time in building community.
As we continue to have conversations about diversity and inclusion, in what ways do you see that happening in the ballet world?
I think there definitely could be more diversity, not only in ballet, but in many fields. But in ballet, of course, we're making more efforts to show that what we're doing and even make it better, to bring ballet to more people in all senses, from the recreational programs to the professional training program. We want it to be accessible to as many people as possible and kind of break the norm that, the ballet school is very, this is an imposing building here. How do I get in? Well, you can.
We have a student-run committee that helps establish equity, diversity, and inclusion throughout the school in many ways. And we've had difficult, complicated conversations. Ballet has definitely had a past history of not being the most inclusive community. And although there has been a lot of progression in these recent years, I feel like there is more room for people from all walks of life to join and celebrate this beautiful art form.
Why do you think it's important that we celebrate World Ballet Day?
I think ballet in general is such a beautiful art form, and it's one that allows people to truly express from within and very deep emotions that people would generally not be able to describe or portray to an audience or the people around them through words. The ballet world definitely does need to grow, but I'm seeing myself more in the ballet community now than I had previously. So I feel like if you don't see yourself now, you will see yourself more in the future, and you should be that person that someone else sees.
A cloudy night in the city following a bit of a dreary day. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a look at our forecast, and some pretty chilly temperatures are sneaking up on us, Colette.
Thanks, Talia. Well, this week I've been talking about how there would be some colder air coming towards the end of the week, and it is upon us. So coming in tonight, we're going to have some much chillier temperatures, and we're going to feel those tomorrow night as well. And it doesn't get all that much better during the day on Friday, but this is what it looks like, is essentially with some of that cooler air in place. Tomorrow morning, our temperature will be below freezing, and with the winds not even that strong, it's time to start talking about wind chills. So we're actually going to have a wind chill factor. It's going to feel like about -8 or so, and that's not necessarily what it's going to be on the thermometer, but that's how it'll feel. Cool Friday and Saturday, temperatures running below seasonal, especially for tomorrow, but by afternoon we'll have some sunshine, and we'll have sunshine through the day into Saturday. Late Sunday into Monday, we may be seeing not just some precipitation in the form of rain, but that changing over into some wet flurries. Yep, that's in the forecast as well. Frost advisory tonight, I do want to tell you about this, stretching from the Niagara region back into portions of southwestern Ontario. Other portions have seen a hard freeze, but some of these areas not necessarily, so just letting you know about that frost advisory then for tonight. Some of the heavy precipitation associated with the remnants of Hurricane Zeta. That stayed to the south of us. We had some lighter showers that we were seeing. Some of those that came through the GTA earlier, some of that drizzle, really that was associated with the system that was coming down from the north. You got a little bit tagged from some of the remnants of Zeta towards southwestern Ontario. A lot of cloud cover kind of hanging in there through the overnight and early tomorrow morning, but then that will begin to erode. So it'll take a bit of time, but we will have the sun beginning to come out eventually. A few areas where you could see, it's a slim chance, but a little bit of a mix of a few wet flurries possible there into southwestern Ontario. I put that chance in there. You'll see that here momentarily. But then we get into that high pressure building in. Yes, it is cooler air in place, but it gives us some of that sun into Saturday. So the start of the weekend is looking pretty good there. Here we go with your temperatures then. Because of the cloud cover, it insulates you a little bit here for tonight, so that's why the readings look like this. But into tomorrow, there's that chance. It's slimmer for Windsor than, say, Sarnia over towards Chatham-Kent, where it'll be more like 40% instead of 30%. Then the readings cooler towards Markham, may even be -4, but feeling like -8 to -10 there tomorrow morning with the winds out of the northeast at about 15 kilometers an hour. Tomorrow afternoon, yeah, you're reading those correctly. Those are the highs, about 4 degrees. Saturday it gets a little bit better for Halloween. And don't forget, at least the clocks fall back, so gaining an hour this weekend to go along with some of that cooler air in place, Talia.
Thanks for warning us, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
When some Cabbagetown residents found themselves at home with a little extra time during the pandemic, they rolled up their sleeves and started cooking for a cause. More now on how a group of strangers spent the last 7 months working together.
What did I do today?
What did you bring
today? Oh, I brought ham and cheese.
Nice.
And then I got some carrots and celery in little bags.
That's awesome.
Stuff.
I've lived in the street for 17 years, but I didn't know pretty much anybody by name. But now, when I walk to the street, it's everybody. Hi, and stuff, and it's exciting. I used to have my own restaurant actually for 7.5 years, but I've been working at Bistro. But during COVID, end of March, we got laid off. That's when I was walking down the street and I met my friend David Raycraft, who's director of housing for Dixon Hall. And I asked him, what can I do? Because I got lots of time. But a week after we started the Hot Lunch program, Pablo from 58 Sumac, different program, Dixon Hall, they were expanding the lunch program because there was such a need. And he asked if we could do 50 sandwiches. So then I contacted my friend Victoria Haddon here, who runs the Aberdeen Avenue Residents Group. And I said, can you send out an email? Can we talk to neighbors and see if we can organize something to help this great cause?
We are a very tight-knit group on the street. I mean, people call it the best little street in Cabbagetown. I mean, we're small, but
it's one block.
But we're mighty.
Hey, how's it going, Michael? As always, thank you all so much for your support. We couldn't do any of this without you. Do you want to come in and just bring it to the table there? Do you want us to, or? Why don't you give me a minute? To have neighbors helping neighbors. The individuals that come to our food programs live in the downtown east side. They either live outside or they live in precarious housing. So to have one group of neighbors, the Aberdeen Sandwich Group, help another group of neighbors, the at-risk and homeless individuals that live in this community, is unbelievably important and fills my heart with joy.
What a lovely initiative. That's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.